What is up, guys? Welcome back to another Walking on Water fishing report. It is February 20th, 2024, and I am standing on the edge of a still frozen Fernan Lake, and actually a more frozen Fernan Lake. A couple weeks ago, we were out here doing a fishing report, and there was big pockets in the ice and a lot of defrosting happening. But we went into another cold snap this last week. Things got a lot colder, snowfall again, and here we are standing on a completely frozen Fernan Lake. But today marks the day, February 20th, 2024, that the temperature up here in the Pacific Northwest in the Panhandle of Idaho, we're gonna start warming up. I'm only seeing 40s to 50 degree temperatures in our future in the forecast. So, ice fishing, yet we could get another freak cold snap because this winter has been extremely weird. But in my opinion, after today, the safety of the ice is only gonna diminish, so stay off the ice, guys. Make sure you're being safe. If you're bringing your kids out here, fish responsibly on the ice with your families. You don't ever wanna have an accident on the ice. Now, Fernan Lake, it's defrosting, okay? So the fishing on Fernan Lake is gonna be kind of hit or miss. You can go to the dock, you can drill a hole, perch, crappie, you know, trout, rainbow trout, stalker trout. Later in the year, I've already been looking at the schedule. There's already rainbow trout on the stocking list. And so there's a lot of fishing to come for here on Fernan Lake. But that's all I have for Fernan right now. It's frozen. I can see a ton of footprints and tracks out there on the lake itself. And so we are looking at probably a couple weeks before this is actually fully fishable. But right now you can get out on some of these banks, drill a hole a couple feet out, throw your line through it and see how you do. That's my recommendation for Fernan Lake. Now, let's get into Lake Coeur d'Alene. Now, this is where it starts to get really exciting for me, and I'm sure for a lot of you guys as well. Lake Coeur d'Alene, spring Chinook, pike, smallmouth bass is all coming into fruition. Pike has already been an active fishery that people have been targeting and fishing on Coeur d'Alene Lake, and I have been as well. It's been a super fun season so far and a fairly productive season at that. So if you're looking to go out there and target pike, a great way to do so is from the bank right now while the lake is still a little bit low, and you can go out there and throw smelt, herring, dead stick, fish them under a bobber, and so on and so forth. You could even find some areas where you could hit them with some chatterbaits or different kind of swim baits and things like that. Make sure you're using a steel leader and get out there and bonk some big old pike, guys, on Lake Coeur d'Alene. But the most exciting part about this transition of the year right now happening is that the temperatures are going up. Yes, all these water systems right now that we're talking about, they're gonna be a little hairy, a little fishy, if you will, when it comes to actually catching fish right now, because there's a lot of transitions happening in the water, right? So we went from a cold snap, now we're getting 40 to 50 degree temperatures, and the temperatures of the water is actually rising. So that means fish are gonna be scattered trying to find those pockets of water where they can actively feed. They wanna hang out. It's the right temperature for them, you know, in their ecosystem so they can thrive and flourish. But right now we're moving into spring. The water's warming up. And once we hit about a 42 to about a 44 degree water temperature on the surface, that's gonna indicate to me that I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna start fishing for those kokanee and those spring Chinook on Lake Coeur d'Alene. So I'm super excited. This time of year is absolutely amazing. I love when the trees start to change, the weather starts to get warmer, and the fish start rising to the surface so we can get out there and actively target certain fish. Some of these fish, like spring Chinook on Lake Coeur d'Alene, they're tough fish to catch. So the best way to mitigate any other variables that are working against you is to know right where those fish are gonna be. And once the water temperature starts warming up and those fish start moving up to the surface, then we know that it's time to go out there and start fishing for those big spring Chinook on Lake Coeur d'Alene. Also, kokanee, the water temperature is also gonna depict where the kokanee are gonna be at in the lake. With this cold snap, it kind of threw all the kokanee off, and this goes for Hayden Lake as well. When you get a cold snap like that, and you have 30 degree temperatures, the air is actually gonna really put a strain on those fish and the surface of the water temperature. So if the water temperature on the surface is extremely cold, then they're not gonna be as close to the surface as you might think they're gonna be. Hence why this last week's cold snap did do a little bit of damage to where these fish are actually hanging out. So if you thought you were dialed, go back out there, check your depths, check your temperatures, look at your fish finder, and see if you can't locate those fish and see what temperatures and water levels they're hanging out in underneath the water. Okay, that's Lake Coeur d'Alene. Let's get into the fishing report for Hayden Lake. All right, guys, so the sportsman access side of Hayden Lake is still frozen, just like Fernan. It is a small channel of the lake and it will freeze. So sportsman access boat ramp is still gonna be frozen. Now you can get out there on the dock, you can drill a hole through the ice and you can jig, you can so on and so forth with some bait, maybe for some pike. I know a lot of pike hang out on that end of the lake and a lot of pike like to hang out right there near that dock. So if you do wanna catch some pike, there is the option of going to sportsman access on Hayden. It's a good location to get out there and sit on the dock and do a little bit of fishing with your family and friends. Now, on the main body of the lake, again, Lake Coeur kind of translates over to Hayden Lake because we have this cold snap that hit us last week, and now we have temperatures in the mid 40s right now as I'm standing on the edge of Fernan Lake. But in the next week or so, all of these things are gonna start just kind of becoming a little bit more copacetic. Everything's gonna be in alignment. We had a cold snap last week, warm weather this week, and we're supposed to have warm weather next week. So if the weather is consistently warm for the next few weeks, we're gonna be looking at spring fishing through and through. We're gonna have kokanee on the surface, we're gonna have spring chinook on the surface, and we're gonna have that ice melting at sportsman access on Hayden so we can access that boat ramp as well. Now, if you're looking to go out and target kokanee right now on Hayden Lake, I would suggest going out there, cruising around a little bit, starting in your normal springtime depths, if you know what those are, and then as well as watching your fish finder and finding those schools of fish so you can actively target those fish. With the cold weather and the extremely cold temperatures, you're looking at a more lethargic fish. You're not looking at a fish that's actively attacking and just running up, and their fight is a lot different. So when you have a more lethargic fish, you got to change certain things in your presentation to target these fish because the fish are not feeding and are not as active as they would be normally. They're moving slower, their brains aren't working as fast, they're in a little bit of a fog. So you got to understand that when it comes to really cold water temperatures for certain kinds of fish, that they're going to be moving a little bit more sluggish. So you got to adjust your presentations and so on and so forth for those times and those weather temperatures and those cold weather temperatures. So again, Fernan Lake still frozen. It's warming up. I would say this is the last day really you could really possibly fish it, and even then I wouldn't go out by myself and fish in the middle of Fernan Lake right now. Lake Coeur a lot of beautiful things happening. Transition of waters happening right now. We're starting the warm weather period, at least the warmer weather period, and once that water hits above 40 degrees, we're actively fishing in spring. As well as Hayden Lake, it goes exactly the same as Lake Coeur. So there you guys have it. February 20th, 2024, walking on water, Lake Coeur Fernan and Hayden fishing report. I'll see you guys in the next one. Hey, like, subscribe, and share these videos, guys, and make sure you go check out the shop. There's a lot of micro hybrid hoochies out there ready to destroy kokanee this year for you guys. So stay tuned for the next video.